Those of you who know me through the years know I brought my hanky up here. Always have to have it for this particular assembly. Good afternoon, and thank you for joining us here today. I'd especially like to acknowledge members of the American Legion, particularly Mr. Bob Rainville, who helps us coordinate not only this event, but the town-wide ceremonies coming up this weekend as well. I'd also like to recognize Mrs. Chris Keefe, our school committee chair, who's here with us, and our newly elected school committee member, Mrs. Angela Yildiz, who's also joining us today. Before we begin our program, I'd like to have a moment of silence for Mr. John Bergen, who passed away January 21st of this year. Mr. Bergen, joined by members of his family, was honored at our assembly last year for 60 years of membership in the American Legion. So could we just take a moment and a moment of silence for him? Each year, Berlin Memorial School is proud to host its annual Memorial Day ceremony. As we do every year, our children will be performing patriotic songs and readings that honor those men and women who served in our armed forces and are now laid to rest. I'm proud of our school and of our commitment to this important and meaningful day. In maintaining these traditions, we not only keep the memory of our service people alive, but we teach our children about the gift of freedom, not only in a historical context, but in the faces of the veterans, families, and community members, and all those who join us this day to pay tribute to these individuals. This year, we're recognizing the veterans of the Vietnam era by dedicating a plaque in their honor that hangs in the main hallway alongside our plaques from other conflicts. Mr. Rainville will be speaking more about that in a little while, but I do want to take a moment to ask those people who are on that committee to please stand for a moment so we can thank them for the plaque. So is anybody in the audience who's involved in the plaque committee, could you please stand? While we can only have hoped that this would have been the final plaque to be hung in this location, I think peace still remains a dream away for us. We can be proud, however, that our school is the designated location for sheltering not only these plaques, but the names and memories of the servicemen and women who fought from our town. Their presence and name serves as a reminder to our children each day that this school and its very name, Berlin Memorial, are dedicated to those individuals and to the freedoms they fought so valiantly to protect. At this time, I'd like to introduce you to our very special guest and speaker and former Berlin resident, actually had gone to Berlin Memorial School, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Frank McTague, who's traveling from Tampa, Florida to join us for this special occasion. The Lieutenant Colonel moved to Berlin in 1980 with his family and attended Berlin Memorial School and then Tohoto Regional High School where he graduated. He was commissioned second lieutenant in the Army after graduating from Providence College. In 2009, Berlin Memorial School was presented with an American flag sent by Lieutenant Colonel McTague and given by his parents, Mr. and Mrs. Robert McTague, that had flown over the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad, Iraq, and that's also hanging out in our hallways. I'd ask you to join me in welcoming our very special guest speaker, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Frank McTague.
Can everybody hear me? Yes. Okay. Principal Bradley already told you who I am, and I'm sure there's a few people, I've met some people already I know, and there's probably a few more people sitting there going, oh yeah, I remember him. But just so you know, and this is the truth, I still list Berlin, Massachusetts as my hometown, my home of record, and there's no better place and no place I'd rather be, and that's the truth. I've been gone for 21 years now, but I still know where home is, and home is right here. I just want to start by saying that I'm very lucky and very privileged to speak to all of you today. Because it happened pretty quickly, but I realized today as I was talking in one of the 5th grade classes that I'm already kind of moving on. I'm already becoming yesterday's news, and you kids, you are tomorrow's news. You're the ones that are going to shape the future. You're the ones that are going to make our country keep it going as good as it is, make it even better for tomorrow. And that's why it's important to me, and I'm privileged to speak to you. We all know what weekend this is coming up and what day we're celebrating, right? Yes. What is it? Memorial Day. Right, I remember that. And it comes from what word? Memory, right? Or to remember. And I saw that you have a piece in your program today about remembering to remember, right? Very appropriate. If you didn't know that Memorial Day actually started, does anybody know? Anyone going to attend the parade coming up? Coming up on Monday, right? We're going to hear the Gettysburg Address, right? Believe it or not, 28 years ago, there was a young guy sitting up there reciting the Gettysburg Address on Memorial Day. It was me, actually, as a Boy Scout. Some of you will get to do the same. I see your hands. I know you all know. I gotcha. That's when we started what we do on Memorial Day now. We put flowers at graves and we remember. I see on your shirts, it talks about remembering, honoring veterans. And you know what? That's absolutely the right thing. Guys like Mr. Rainville, who, when I was growing up, guys like my dad and Mr. Rainville were our heroes because they had already been in the service and served in times of war. We saw them on Memorial Day. I still look up to them. But Memorial Day is about something specific, unfortunately. And the bad thing about it is that for it to really be a memorial, it means that people had to die for that to be the case. That's who we're really remembering the most on Memorial Day, is people who served in the military in our wars, and unfortunately they died fighting for our country. How many of you are going to go to the parade? I just want to see hands. Okay? If you're not going to the parade and you're going to be in town, I want you to all go to the parade on Monday. Okay? All right? Because that's probably the best thing this town does every year, is that Memorial Day parade. It means a lot. It's also the town bicentennial, so it's really important. Okay? Well, I talked about Gettysburg back in the Civil War. President Lincoln made the Gettysburg Address. And in it, you got to understand, how many of you know that we've been at war now for a while? We've fought wars in Iraq and in Afghanistan. Okay? I've been to Iraq twice. Okay? In all of those wars put together in over a decade, we've had over 6,000 American servicemen and women killed. Okay? Back in the Civil War, in the Battle of Gettysburg, which happened in a couple of days, over 7,000 people were killed just in that battle. Okay, in a couple of days, more than we've lost in 10 years. Okay, so President Lincoln had a heavy heart when he spoke to the American people. Okay, and he said some important words. Okay, and toward the end, though, when he talked about the people who had died, he talked about, who did he speak to? He spoke to the living. And he said, we resolve that these men shall not have died in vain. We the living. Okay? And that's why I'm talking to all of you today. It's about those people that gave their lives, but more than that, it's about all of you. Okay? Because what do we do on Memorial Day? We remember, right? We have the memory of those people. Why do we remember them? Why is it important? Just talked about it. We're fighting in a war right now, kids. I pray and hope that none of you ever have to do that. Okay? I really do. I really mean that. I honestly didn't know I'd been in the Army for 10 years before the war started. I honestly figured I would go my whole career and never have to fight a war. And you know what? If I could do it all over again, I'd be very happy with that. Okay? Unfortunately, as Principal Bradley pointed out, we haven't achieved peace yet. And we had peace for some time, and then unfortunately war seems to find us again. I don't mean that to be sad, I don't mean that to be gloomy, I just want you all to remember that. Remember that these times do find us, even if we mean the best. Okay? Even if we want peace in our hearts, it's an unfortunate truth of man that we always seem to find our way to war eventually. Okay? I don't mean to scare you. I don't mean to get you psyched up for it. I had a couple boys walking around with me during the time I was here today. They seemed very gung-ho to go into the Army and shoot guns. I just wanted to, thanks guys, appreciate that. Very motivated. You guys would make great recruits. And they're only in 5th grade. But the truth is, what we do is a very serious business. Not a lot of us do it. We know that. And we do it for you, okay? And I would just ask, not for me, not even for specifically my dad or Mr. Randall or anyone else, but for all of the armed forces, for those that never came back, okay, that you do that you remember, okay? You remember that they fought for us, okay? Because once they're gone, that's all that exists is that memory. Okay? And as long as you remember to remember, okay? And we have this great country that we have, it will always have been worth it. Okay? I will have felt that it was worth it, and their spirits watching over us, they will know that it was worth it. Okay? That's all I have to say to you guys. I don't want to take any longer. I'm so happy to be here. Glad to hear the band. I was in the band once too. That's true, I played clarinet. Yeah, that's right. And a bass clarinet, I played that too. That's right. You don't have any tenor saxes, do you?
Yes.
Do you really?
Not today, but in the jazz band.
Okay, I played that too. Okay. I don't know, someone asked me today if I had any musical talent. I said they'd have to ask somebody else that. I don't know if I had any, I just played. But anyway, I love you all, I'm glad I'm here, and God bless, and I'll be around if anyone wants to kibitz afterwards. Thank you.
On June 1st, 1864, Senator Charles Sumner commented on what is now considered to be the most famous speech by President Abraham Lincoln. In his eulogy on the slain president, he called it a monumental act. He said that Lincoln was mistaken. The world will little know nor longer remember what we say here. Rather than Bostonian remark, the world will know at once what he said and will never cease to remember it. The battle itself was less important than the speech. Jesse Diggins is here to recite the famous speech. Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war. We are testing whether that nation or any nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But, in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it, far above our ability to add or detract. The world will little know, nor long remember what we say here, but you can never forget what they did here. It is for us, the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to the cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. We highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, that the government of the people, by the people, and for the people, shall not perish from the earth.
The advanced band will now play Liberty Bell.
onto the stage to sing God Bless America.
Have you ever wondered why veterans in foreign wars volunteers give you a paper copy after you give them a donation? During the worst battles in northern France and southwest Belgium in World War I, many soldiers lost their lives fighting for their country. But it was especially devastating for British soldiers, as these brave men were laid to rest. The earth which they were buried on only contained poppy seeds. It is said that poppy seeds can lie dormant underground until they are once again unearthed.
On the day Canadian doctor John McCree looked out from his hospital tent, Flanders Field was blooming with red poppies on account of freshly dug graves. This sight inspired his famous poem.
His poem was published and inspired many. One American woman was so inspired by his words he had penned that she began to wear a poppy to honor those fallen heroes. She then grew more poppies to sell and raise money for disabled veterans. Today, the tradition continues, so when you make a donation to veterans, you will likely receive a paper copy in return.
Picnic craze in Flanders Field remains to this day one of the most memorial war poems ever written. Leah Yildiz is here to recite it today.
In Flanders Fields by Lieutenant Colonel John McCrae. In Flanders Fields, the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place, and in the sky, the larks still bravely singing fly, scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago, we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders Fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe, to you from failing hands we throw. The torch be yours to hold it high, if you break faith with us who died. We shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders Fields.
The beginner band will now perform the Crusaders.
would now like to share with you another song that celebrates our great country. The chorus will perform a part of the song that contains a familiar patriotic song, Help America.
Let freedom ring.
this outstanding performance together. Thank you so much. At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Robert Rainville up to the podium for the dedication of the Vietnam flag.
It's Rhonda Helper. Well, Brad has a few comments on the origins of the flag.
9 years ago, my husband and Ray Ellis hung up the Korean Memorial that's out there now. And Ray said at that time to Brad, listen, we got a wall here and an up room, and I got it all measured for the Vietnam. That was 9 years ago. But Ray is a very, very, I don't know if you know Ray, very persistent person. And he haunted the selectmen to form a committee, which we did, and which Ray was part of. And today we have hung that memorial. And it was because of Ray and his efforts that this was accomplished. So on behalf of the town, the Legion, the committee, we want to thank Ray Ellis and to give him the certificate of appreciation from the Legion. Ray.
Let's have a big hand for him. I'll read it to you people so you know what it said. This certificate of appreciation is gratefully presented to Ray Ellis in recognition and sincere appreciation for our outstanding service and assistance which contributed to the advancement of the American Legion programs and activities dedicated to God and country. From the H. Wallace Wooden Post 162 Berlin, Department of Massachusetts, this May 24th, 2012, signed Robert Rainville, Commander. Let's give him another big hand. And he also got a good live somewhere. It is a tradition of Berlin to acknowledge its citizens that have participated in conflicts to guard individual freedom and rights on a worldwide scale. This is done with a plaque. The Plaque Committee was formed to acknowledge the service of Berlin citizens in the Vietnam conflict, with a sum of $4,000 donated from the town. Our committee members were made up including Selectman Val Bradley, You know Val was up here talking. Also, veterans agents Michelle Marino and James Cabral. They would please stand. I know they stood before, but you couldn't know who they were. Town Clerk Eloise Sauls. And 3 Legionnaires, Roger Bradley, John Wilson, who could not be here, and myself. And as you have found out, the most important member whose dedication and perseverance made it all possible was Ray Ellis, which we give him a round of applause for. The Vietnam conflict was unique in our history and left many divisions in our country. The people that served during this time did so with the intention of helping other people live in a free, democratic society. The plaque is listed with names of people that served from 1964 to 1975, which we call the Vietnam era. As a partial listing, this is due to the fact that Americans served in Vietnam years before 1964. This plaque also acknowledges their service. We thank all who served the cause of freedom in Vietnam, which is still evolving. You, the students and faculty of Berlin Memorial School, are a living memorial for the brave citizens that served the cause of human freedom. You should be proud of that. Thank you.
On behalf of the students and staff at Berlin Memorial School, we'd like to thank all of you for joining us here today. And we'd also like to invite our honored guests, veterans and their families, and members of the plaque committee to join us for a reception in the cafeteria following this event. Before we dismiss, I'd like to remind you of our town Memorial Day events coming up this weekend. On Sunday, the 27th, there will be a Mass at St. Joseph's Church at 8:30 and a service at First Parish Church at 10 a.m., followed by the flag decoration of veterans' graves at our 3 cemeteries. On Monday, the Memorial Day Parade begins from our school. They're congregating around 12:45 with a brief ceremony, and then from here they'll be marching to the old burial ground where there'll be a second ceremony. Representative Stephen Levy is the guest speaker for that event. At this time, I'd ask you to please rise for the playing of taps and the retirement of colors. I'd also ask that after taps, that you hold your applause and that you remain silent as you exit the gymnasium in honor of all our fallen veterans. Thank you so much.
the,
Yeah, but there's Marysville, Kentucky.
this is the Vietnam?
And then we moved.
Do you want to introduce it?
Well, we worked out.
Do you want to introduce it?
Went to Worcester and then we went out to Reedville.
Sure. Just a little introduction.
Hereby dedicate Vietnam Memorial Day this day